Session 624, October the 30th, 1972. Now, good evening. Good evening, Seth. We will continue dictation. To be healthy, you must believe in health. A good physician is a changer of beliefs. He will replace an ideal of illness with one of health. Whatever methods or drugs he uses will not be effective unless this change of belief takes place. Unfortunately, when man became a labeler, he also made maps, so to speak, of great complexity, categorizing various diseases with greater effectiveness than ever before. He studied dead tissue to discover the nature of the disease that killed it. Physicians began to think of men as carriers of disease and diseases, which in certain terms they, the physicians, did themselves create through some new medical procedures. The old medicine men often dealt far more directly with the patient himself and understood the nature of beliefs and the prime importance of suggestion. Many of their techniques were adopted for their psychological shock value, in which the patient was quite effectively brainwashed out of the disease he believed that he had. The present medical profession is sadly hampered because of its own beliefs. Often it operates as a framework in which poor health and disease are not only accepted as normal, but the concepts behind them strengthened. Here you have again, in a psychoanalysis, a hide-and-seek arrangement in which both doctor and patient take part. Both believe they need the other, of course. Behind this is the psychic pattern of beliefs in which the patient often assigns to the doctor the powers of knowledge and wisdom that his beliefs have taught him he does not have. Knowing otherwise, the patient still wants to consider the doctor omnipotent. Upon the patient, a doctor often assigns and projects his own feelings of helplessness against which he combats. The interactions continue with the patient trying to please the doctor, and at best merely changing from one group of symptoms to another. Far too often the doctor shares the patient's unshakable belief in poor health and disease. Not only this, but the medical profession often provides blueprints for diseases, and the patient too often tries them on for size. This is not to say that the medical profession often is not of great aid and benefit, but within the value system in which it operates, much of its positive influence is negated. Because they are held in such high esteem, the suggestions given by doctors are paid particular attention. The patient's emotional condition is such that he or she readily accepts statements made under such circumstances less critically than usual. The naming and labeling of diseases is a harmful practice that, to a large extent, denies the innate mobility and ever-changing quality of the psyche as expressed in flesh. You are told that you have something, or out of the blue it has attacked you, in your most intimate organs perhaps. You are usually told that your emotions or beliefs or systems of value have nothing to do with the unfortunate circumstance that beset you. The patient therefore often feels relatively powerless and at the mercy of any stray virus that might come along. The facts are that you choose even the kind of illness that you have according to the nature of your beliefs. You are immune from ill health as long as you believe that you are. These are quite practical statements. Your body has an overall body consciousness filled with energy and vitality. It automatically rights any imbalances, but your conscious beliefs also affect this body consciousness. Your muscles believe what you tell them about themselves. So does every other portion of your physical body. While you believe that only doctors can cure you, you had better go to them, because in the framework of your beliefs, they are the only people who can help you. But the framework itself is limiting, and again, while you may be cured of one difficulty, You will only replace it with another as long as your beliefs cause you to have physical problems. Now, the same applies to what is frequently called spiritual healing. If through the concentrated use of psychic energy your body is cured to such a healer, you will also simply trade those symptoms for others unless you change your initial beliefs. Now, sometimes a healer or a doctor, with his effectiveness in healing a condition, will show you by inference that the healing energy was always within yourself, and this realization may be enough to allow you to change your beliefs about health entirely. In such a case, you will realize that your previous ill health was caused by your belief. If you have any physical problems, concentrate instead upon the healthy portions of your body and the unimpeded functions that you have. If in the healthy areas your beliefs are working for you. As I mentioned in the last session, inner sounds are extremely important. Each of the atoms and molecules that compose your body has its own reality in sound values that you do not hear physically. Each organ of your body then has its own unique sound value too. When there is something wrong, the inner sounds are discordant. The unharmonious sounds have become a part of that portion of the body as a result of the inner sound of your own thought beliefs. That is why it is vital that you not reinforce these inner sounds through repeating the same negative suggestions to yourself. Verbal suggestions are translated into inner sound. This passes through your body in somewhat the same way that some kinds of light do. Now, while you are physical creatures, then your perceptions must be largely physically oriented. Even your bodies exist in other terms than you usually suppose. You perceive them as objects with bulk, composed of bone and flesh. They also have structures of sound, light, and electromagnetic properties that you do not perceive. These are all connected with the physical image that you know. Any physical disabilities will show themselves in these other structures initially. The sound, light, and electromagnetic patterns give strength and vitality to the physical form that you recognize. They are more mobile than the physical body and even more susceptible to the changing pattern of your own thought and emotion. I told you that thoughts are translated into this inner sound, but thoughts always attempt to materialize themselves also. As such, they are incipient images, collectors of energy. They build up their own embryonic, I can't say that word, form until it is in one way or another physically translated. Mental images, therefore, are extremely powerful, combining inner sound and its effects with a clear mental picture which will seek physical form. Your imagination adds motivating and propelling power to such images, and so you will find that many of your beliefs are entertained by you in an inner visual manner. They will have mental pictures connected with them. One such image may represent one particular belief, or it may stand for several. As you make lists of your beliefs, you will find some of these pictures coming into your mind. Look at them as you would a painting you have created. If you do not like what you see, then quite consciously change the picture in your mind. These images are interior, yet because they are so a part of your beliefs, you will see them exteriorized also in your experience. Let me give you a simple example. You have a sore toe. Now and then you see it quite clearly in your mind. You may find yourself looking at the toe more frequently than usual, and you may also find yourself picking out from the populace anyone who is not walking properly. These people might escape your notice ordinarily, but suddenly the world seems to be full of sore toes. We are dealing to make a point with a belief already made physical. But if you continue such concentration, the toe either would not heal or would develop into a worse condition. Behind all this, of course, would be the belief that caused the difficulty. But once you have brought about a group of symptoms, you must be very careful that you do not begin to view your field of reality from that position. When you do, you add both inner and outer images that reinforce the condition. There is light, then, that you do not see with physical eyes, as there is sound that you do not hear with your ears. These combine to mentally form the physical image that you know, so you must work from the inside out. Your beliefs are your palette, using the analogy of a painting again. Your thoughts give the general outline of the reality that you physically experience. Your emotions will fill in the patterns with light. Your imagination will forge these together. The sound of your inner thoughts is the medium that you actually use. This is far more than an analogy, however, for in simple terms it explains quite clearly the way in which your beliefs form your reality. In quiet moments, the word O and M's, I guess that's said slowly, mentally or aloud, will be of benefit in toning up your general physical condition. The sounds contain within them a built-in impetus toward energy and well-being, as I will explain shortly. Now I am going to end for this evening. I will resume, however, at our next session. If you have any questions, I will answer them. Then I bid you a fond good evening, and my heartiest regards to you both. Okay, I can maybe get another session in here. Good evening, Seth. Dictation. The body reacts not so much to physical sound as to the interior sounds into which the physical sounds are translated. As mentioned, it also reacts to sounds that have no physical counterparts. There are certain properties within the structure of the chromosomes that must be activated by specific internal sound values. If this activation does not take place, then the attributes latent within the chromosomes remain so. There are chains of influence that are actually composed of inner value of sound that thread together, as it were, the complicated interweavings of both the genes and the chromosomes. I am taking this slowly to explain it as simply as possible. The sound values are literally interwoven in an electromagnetic pattern. The sounds weave themselves through and help form this pattern. The activity of cells within the body also causes what you might call minute explosions of interior sound. The electromagnetic and inner sound patterns are impinged upon by certain kinds of light. Together these all form the prototype upon which and out of which the physical body is formed. Now, when you create a mental image in your mind, it is composed of the same properties just mentioned. A mental image, then, is also a pattern of internal sound with electromagnetic properties imbued with certain light values. In a sense, and a very real one, the mental image is incipient matter, and any structure so composed, combining the electromagnetic sound and light values, will automatically try to reproduce itself in physical existence or materialization. There is a definite connection, then, with the nature of such images and the way in which your body itself is composed. Electrons, atoms, and molecules all have their independent interior sound and light values. There are definite sounds produced when messages leap from your nerve endings or something. It is very difficult to explain some of this, but there is invisible light, then, and inaudible sound that affect your body and helps form the pattern about which it constantly emerges. The body is obviously continually created during your present lifetime, in your terms, It is not a mechanism once created, then left to fend for itself. You were not given a certain amount of life force at birth that you use up as you go along, contrary to many schools of thought. The atoms and molecules within you are quite literally dying and being completely replaced all the time. You are being created physically each instant, period. The body reacts to exterior sounds and to the stimuli brought to it by the physical senses. These patterns of reaction can be clearly shown. They are all that is presently observable, however, of far greater interaction than also. They are all that is presently observable, however, of far greater interactions that also occur. The atoms and molecules that compose your cells and your flesh, for instance, do not react to the physical sounds that you hear or to the light patterns that your physical eyes perceive. In times of danger, your entire body must be able to move swiftly. The hormonal system must react with great rapidity, sometimes completely changing the balance of a moment earlier. The muscles must be immediately alert and the entire body flexible enough to respond as a whole. This includes every organ and the most minute portion. Say you are in the middle of a street and suddenly a car is about to hit you. It has come seemingly from nowhere. The cells that compose your intestines, your heart, your muscles obviously do not see the car as you do. Yet the whole system must be instantly activated, and the data that you perceive must be translated in terms that will energize every portion of your body. This is done by translating exterior stimuli into interior stimuli, but the physical carriers of the data are all that scientists or physicians have been able to follow thus far. The greater interactions have not been perceived, and the true story of the decoding of such messages has not been understood. And take your break. Jane's trance had developed into quite a profound one, but typically she was soon out of it. "Wow, he's going to town tonight," she exclaimed. "He gave me a break now only because he's going into something more, and he doesn't want to interrupt it." I couldn't tell you what that was about, and yet I have an idea. I think Seth wishes I had a better vocabulary for body things. Now, and we resume. Now, the nerves are also composed of the same kind of interior structures as mentioned earlier in this chapter, around or rather from which the physical nerves form. Here the exterior data is translated and broken down into inner terms. That is, it is decoded in terms of the internal sound, light, and electromagnetic patterns discussed before. It then becomes usable information, even in terms of the atoms and molecules that compose the cells. The physical lapse that occurs between an incoming message and its intended destination does not occur on these other levels. The interior message gets to its destination ahead of the physical one. By the time the organism responds, the inner patterns have already reacted, and this must and always does precede any physical response to stimuli. Therefore, the invisible body pattern, composed of its interior light, sound, and electromagnetic properties, reacts first and actually initiates the later physical response. There is always this translation of exterior stimuli. The perceived lapse noted by scientists is, of course, the physical one, caused by the time it takes the message to leap the nerve endings. The interior translation, however, is simultaneous. Now return in your mind to the situation of the near accident. That event with the car, its driver, and your own precarious position exist as another structure beside the one that you physically see. It also, the event, exists in the terms mentioned earlier in a reality composed of invisible light, inaudible sound, and electromagnetic patterns. Consciously, you react to the physical data, the noise, the squeal of brakes, perhaps the visual shock of seeing the car so close. But the entire inner reality of that scene or event is instantly recognized by what I refer to as your inner senses. These respond to the interior patterns I've told you about. The physical data is carried through the nerves with the necessary time lapses that must occur. These represent the temporal end of the spectrum of perception. Because you are flesh and blood creatures, the interior aspects of perception must have their physical counterparts. But material awareness and bodily response to it would be impossible were it not for these internal web works. Now, before you see anything physically, you do so through these inner pathways. The interior perception activates the outside one. When you experience physical motion or activity, events or phenomena, you are becoming aware of the tail end of a long series of interior comprehensions. I am saying that all exterior events, including your own bodies with their insides, all objects, all physical materializations, are the outside structure of inside ones that are composed of interior sound and invisible light, interwoven in electromagnetic patterns. Beneath temporal perception, then, each object and event exists in these terms, in patterns that interact with each other. On a physical level, you seem to be separated from everything that is not yourself. This is not true, but in your day-to-day existence it seems to be, and it is an assumption that you usually take for granted. On the interior level, in which I have been speaking, all happenings and objects are connected. A movement or change in one affects others. You will physically respond to and recognize some of this alteration, as in the example of the near accident. But whether or not you are consciously aware of such activity, it changes the interior environment of your body through these inner pathways. Your own thoughts and beliefs, having the same kind of inner reality, also transform the interior environments of others. The near accident mentioned was a physical event, but it was initially a mental one. It existed in this non-temporal reality then, before, in your terms, it was physically materialized, perceived, and reacted to. It was propelled from inner reality to outward reality through belief, emotion, and imagination. Because you cannot see them, it may seem to you that these qualities are not as real, say, as an object. Physically, you can only see the results of an emotion. For instance, you cannot hold in your hands as you can a stone. Ideas represent your psychic intent. They generate emotion and imagination. These activate the interior patterns. They are the motive force of action, the means by which all interior events are exteriorized. They are energy formed and directed, formulations of interior and exterior patterns of reality. They are a part of the creative force from which all realities spring. Again, we run into difficulties in explanation simply because there are few verbal equivalents for what I am trying to say. Imagination and emotions are the most concentrated forms of energy that you possess as psychic creatures. Any strong emotion carries within it far more energy than, say, that required to send a rocket to the moon. Emotions, instead of propelling a physical rocket, for example, send thoughts from that interior reality through the barrier between non-physical and physical into the objective world. No small feat, and one that is constantly repeated. You may take your break. Boy, I'm telling you, I was out that time. I really was, Jane said. The house could have fallen down, I think. I had that thing again where you're in so deep that you're a part of it. The feeling where you're in the guts of things. It's a real weird kind of inner focus. There's a great kind of fulfilling sense of triumph doing it, like you're pulling stuff out of the secret nature of things. I can't say where you go or what you do. After all this time, I'm still amazed that this book comes out all finished, she said. Usually I don't want anybody else around for this. You cut out everything else. Other people would cause you to pick up on them or be distracting. Seth had something to say about this last thought not long ago. The following quotes are extracted from some deleted material. Generally speaking, it is better if book dictation is done alone or with those with whom you are well acquainted and easy. This is simply because there are less psychic distractions, and it is easier for Rupert to focus into one clear channel. The needs and desires of others naturally enter in, Seth continued, and some energy must be used to close them out. The more interested and excited witnesses are, of course, the more their own concerns the more interested and excited witnesses are, of course, the more their own concerns ring out. It is difficult for Rupert to block out these additional psychic distractions. With strangers, the sessions are often personal, however, because their own emotional reactions are so vibrant initially. Okay. Now, I will begin session 626 with the next one, but I'm going to show something. I'll go to Casa. I've been taking pictures of light, and I have a certain method of doing it, and I have so many pictures of light making these orbs. And when I take the pictures and I use the movie mode of my camera, all these orbs that are in these pictures here, they're changing constantly. Let me get one started here. I will get it going. And you see, I take pictures of light, and I take a picture using my camera focus real close up on a spot of light off of a glass object. And I am finding that in that concentrated light that shines off of the glass, and it can be a glass anything, a glass marble or a glass candle holder or a glass wine cup or glass or anything like that. But what I am finding is that sometimes if there's something going on in the background that's allowed, or if it's just my thoughts, but if it's something I've got music on or something, then the orbs move differently, like they're in sync with the sound or maybe other qualities of what is going on. And I've yet to find anyone, scientific-minded person, who is even interested in looking at my pictures of orbs of light. And I get them as they're coming right out of the light source, which is just a little LED light I have on my desk. These aren't going fast enough for me. Let me set it to 3 seconds. And I look at these orbs of light, and I see the little orb twisting and turning and elongating itself like a long ribbon. And then it kind of skirts around, and it enters into its own self and creates a orb that goes between two orbs in and out of it. It does things like you see this picture. It looks like a ribbon, but in that one area right there, it's all coming up and kind of shooting out from itself. And I know these aren't just refractions of light, because I'm seeing what an orb of light does in its movement. And it's moving through the glass object that I'm getting the shine off of. And I've been trying to think what this is. all on my own because I can't get any scientific attention out there by anyone that would take it seriously. But I do think I'm looking at something that might exist in another dimension. Let me see if I can get to a better bunch of them. You see, I've taken many, many pictures of these. And these orbs look so many different ways. Sometimes they're just white, and sometimes, see, the orb there is curling up on one end and folding on the other, and it looks kind of like a scroll. It's a book of light, and they can look so strange. I like to take pictures of them just to get a sample of many ways they can look. But also, what I want to share, because a lot of people do say, well, this is just something the camera does, or this is light refraction, or any number of reasons I'm given that I'm getting pictures like this. But with the naked eye, when I look at light, in my room, when it's sort of dark in the room and I just have the one little LED light on, it kind of sprays out its light into the room. And I guess because part of the room is dark, I can see it best that way. And there's all kinds of things in the light. It's like there's dimensions in there. It's like I could walk through strands of light if I were a beam of light myself in that world. I can't really walk through them, but in my mind it's like, wow, this light has dimensions. And I've been listening to a lot of quantum physics and a lot of talk about the Higgs boson and all that. They're trying to discover the smallest part of an atom. But I think I'm seeing what composes an atom, what composes the center of an atom. And because I see it with the naked eye, I know for a fact that it's not just the camera. I see this with the naked eye too. Only I see it's a broader expanse of it, much more than what the camera will pick up. And yet, the camera picks up quite a lot. Often when I'm looking at my pictures after I've taken them, I say, oh yeah, I saw that with the naked eye. And, but only portions of what I see with the naked eye. Because when I view then, just looking myself at the light without the use of a camera, I see a vast area, not just through one orb or a few orbs, but I see the terrain unbroken. And there's activity going on in the light all around us. I think we're like swimming in a soup of light. And we're light as well, but we don't know ourselves as light. But I think that a part of us is being programmed, perhaps, by this light that's all around us. And like Seth says, when you put out positive thoughts, you get some beautiful orbs, maybe. But you get benefited by not staying with the negative. I'm just going to end this because I'm anxious to show off these pictures of orbs. When you take these pictures, you have to keep your shutter that lets the the flash light that would, what do they call that? You have to keep the flash off because you don't want that extra light. Now, a lot of people get pictures of orbs in the flash of their camera when they take pictures outdoors at night and sometimes even indoors. They get these orbs that they don't see them there. They don't cause them to be there like I'm causing these to be because I'm using a method I've developed. I guess I just developed it quite by accident. But I'm not getting any good information about this to the scientific world if they would be interested. I think they should be. So if any of you hearing this know any scientific-minded person that is open to understanding something that might kind of go against some of the scientific learnings he has, because this light is doing things like, let's see it right here, it is strung out like a tape, and then it's curled up at this end. And this may be several orbs of light. And in this quantum world of light like this, 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 and 1 may equal 2,500 or something, because every little portion of the orb can become another orb. And who knows how many portions there are. And they're so full of color. Just gorgeous, beautiful colors and patterns. And little round circles, lots and lots of little round circles. Okay. Some of the colors, the combinations are really interesting. And nothing is symmetrical within them, and yet there's great beauty, even though there's no symmetry. Sometimes I think of it as antimatter, or what's in empty space. And these orbs of light, they give out their colors to another orb right around them. And they pass through one another like that was nothing to have to pass through each other or to drop out their light into another atom. I said atom, I meant into another orb. Even with one camera that I take pictures of this light with, I get into a different spectrum of the light where there is a little light creature, I call him Harry, and he always pops into an orb. Let me see if I can go back to my lab here and see if I can see some Harry pictures. Okay. Orbs with Harry in them. Okay. I'm not good at classifying my pictures or knowing how to organize them or go and find something that I really want to show. I've got to learn the order of how to categorize things. So many pictures I don't have because I put them into this My Passport, and I have to hook that up to get them to show again. I'm going to not look in Picasso. I can't seem to find my latest ones there. Let me go and look in my pictures, because I had some really good ones the other day. Okay. Oh, that's not the one. Okay, this picture right here will show you, this is the light source right here that I'm pointing to, and the orbs of light come out, and that sometimes they're just white whitish, or they have colors in them, corded colors that are like many multiple colors. And then as they get out a little further, they turn perfectly round into the typical round orb. But then after that, they can intermingle with other orbs and do all kinds of amazing things with one another where they look very strange indeed. The colors, I really can't understand. If this was light refraction, why would it be so different right here, then right there? You know, 3 different color schemes going on there. And they drop their light out of them. See, this one's dropping its light. Gosh, I go to... Okay, it takes it a while for it to come in clearly. If I go too fast, the dull picture of it without all the color showing real good comes up. But I wonder sometimes if I'm looking at something like chromosomes or molecules, or I don't know. I know the man who built the coral castle, he could also see in the air around him, in the daylight, he could see little strings of chromosomes, he called it. And I see that all the time with the naked eye. I'll just have to squint my eyes a little bit, and I see little tube-like things moving about, and little circles, and all kinds of things. Really, it's hard to describe. But they move about around me, and they stay right in front of my eyes. Like if I turn around, they're still right in front of my eyes, and they move with me. I was in the pool one day, and I was going round and round, and I was seeing them, and they just were traveling along with me, as if I were encased in kind of a bubble of them. And they were sort of a part of me. Now, what I see with the naked eye and what I'm capturing with my camera are similar, but not exactly. What I see with the naked eye can be seen by me, because I recognize what I see as compared to these pictures, as portions of what I see with the naked eye. Just portions of it. So, I'm going to go back and select another See, there's one thing I film use that is glass that I film through, and it creates lots of little orbs because of the way the glass is. And it's this thing right here. It's a Christmas ornament made out of glass. And when I use my camera and focus up on the light that's reflected from this, when I have my LED light on, it will create pictures like this, where you see many, many orbs. I'm not exactly centered, am I? There's Harry. This is the little creature I told you about. He sometimes drops down in an orb. And sometimes there's an orb in front of an orb that he's in. And you can't see him real good because you see he's there, but you can't get that other orb to go away from creating a block to see in him. There wasn't many in that one. I'm going to end now because I am having trouble with my showing of these. Oh, I will show you one little funny thing. I think it's very funny. This camera that I'm using for this picture always puts these two what I call little eyes. You see me pointing to it with a pointer right there? And these two little round eye-like spots will be on each and every orb. See, here's one up here in the far high left corner, and it has eyes. And this one has eyes, and all of them will have that on them, but sometimes you don't see them so well because of the coloration that's in the orb kind of camouflages it. I always see little rings. Now see, here's a ring, kind of a big one, but there's all kinds of little rings with concentric circles around them. And when I use the implement I use to get this one is a bunch of marbles that I have sort of glued together into the pattern of the flower of life. And when I take pictures, I get many little spots of light off of these marbles, and each spot of light makes a round orb. And they don't all have the same things going on in them. See, here's another example of that, taking pictures from using that glass object. And then the orbs will overlap each other very often. See, here's the two eyes in this one, and then two eyes there. You don't see them in this one so well because of the coloration. But I just wonder why these orbs taken with that camera always manage to put two eyes right there on that. There's the two eyes there, and there they are there. And see the difference, in this is a different color pattern completely from this one here, and then different from this one way up here you only see a little bit of. So if it's light refraction, why so many? Why so many different kinds? And if it is light refraction, which so many people are emailing me and are making a comment and saying that's all that this is, it's just light. And I think, well, why have I not seen light shown this way under images? When I go to Google images of photons of light, I don't find this kind of image anywhere. I can't believe that it's just light refraction. But if it is light refraction, we need to study light refraction, see more into what that is really refracting to us. Because I think of this as light from a light dimension that is not ordinarily perceivable by the human eye. Well, now I'm into almost 47 minutes of showing you orbs part of this. But sometimes people who listen to me read Seth don't look at my videos of orbs. And I want them to see that I'm exploring a fantastic little world of light that fascinates me. It really does. And some nights when I'm filming this, I'm torn between whether to take pictures of it or just to look at it for myself without using my camera, because I want to do both at the same time. But what I see with the naked eye myself, I can't show anybody else. But it's actually more, it comes more alive for me when I see with just my naked eye. I get this view quite a lot from there. And see, this is one orb that has kind of bent over, and there's light streaks going through it like bridges across it. And over in the background there is another orb that has all kinds of other color in it. But this is mostly white, but it shows a movement of the orb just turning, flipping over. You know, they are very flexible. They can move any kind of way. They move so many ways that some people don't recognize them as an orb. They think all orbs have to just be round, but no. These orbs are very capable of all kinds of motion. Well, I guess I will end this since I'm at 50 minutes.